The HS2 high-speed rail service was intended to connect London with major cities in the north. An ambitious infrastructure project started in 2013 with a budget of £33 billion. It's progressively been cut back to a fraction of its original vision. In 2021, the branch connecting Leeds to the network was scrapped. That was followed by the binning off of the Manchester leg in 2023. That leaves a single track, yet to be built, running between London and Birmingham, with a connection to the existing West Coast main line in Staffordshire. But even that project has run into problems with multiple delays and spiralling costs. And today, in Parliament, Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander announced even further problems on the line.
It gives me no pleasure to say the expected cost of completing HS2 is now between £87.7 billion and £102.7 billion priced in 2025. Two-thirds of this increase is down to past misunderstanding of the work required, underestimation and inefficiency, issues within the control of HS2 Limited, some of its suppliers and previous governments. The remaining third is linked to inflation, which was not factored into previous cost estimates regularly enough.
£102 billion is, of course, 3 times the original budget for about half of the promised infrastructure. Although I should be saying, I need to be clear about this, that 33 billion, if it was in today's terms with inflation, it's about 48, 49 billion. Nonetheless, you're looking at 3 to twice as much for less. Given the line will now only be 135 miles long, that's a little under £1 billion per mile. HS1 was £50 million per mile. £1 billion per mile. And Heidi Alexander also made clear that trains won't be running anywhere near on time in terms of the schedules. The first service on the track won't run until 2039. Well, that will only be between Birmingham and the new Old Oak Common Station. I have no idea what that is either, which is still under construction in West London. Crazy. 100 billion to a station that nobody's ever been to. Trains won't run between Euston Station in central London and that other station until 2040, and the West Coast Main Line in Staffordshire until sometime between 2040 and 2043. In other words, this full line, which has already been reduced between Euston and Birmingham, will be in operation when I'm 60. When I'm 60, they started building it when I was 29. And even then, the high-speed trains won't be anywhere near as high speed as promised, dropping from an initial 244 miles per hour, as was envisaged 14 years ago, to 199 miles per hour. Now, Alexander was clear about who she thought was responsible.
And so this Labour government is clear. We will deliver HS2 to completion because this country can build big things. We just need competent people at the helm to deliver them. Prime Ministers Cameron, May, Johnson, Truss and Sunak created the world's...
I'm sure the Secretary of State did not mean to use the Right Honourable Member for Richmond and Northallerton's name. Heidi Alexander.
My apologies, Madam Deputy Speaker. Previous Prime Ministers, in my view, created the world's most expensive slow-motion car crash, and they barely batted an eyelid. Under this government, we've rolled up our sleeves and done the hard yards, putting the right team in place and being honest about the scale of the challenge. Madam Deputy Speaker, I understand that this statement today will be met with cynicism and anger. But I say with genuine pride and conviction that I believe we are finally starting to see real delivery.
So much for High Speed 2. We got Slow Speed 1. HS2 was always conceived as a very ambitious plan at the cutting edge of rail technology. This was an ad for the line released by the Department of Transport in 2013. That, of course, was under the coalition government.
The High Speed 2 network will transform rail travel in Great Britain. It's the backbone to a new high-speed Britain, connecting the north and the south, linking 18 cities and cutting many existing journey times by almost half. With up to 36 high-speed trains running on the network every hour, it'll put 2/3 of the population of northern England within 2 hours of central London. Leeds will only be an hour and 22 minutes from London, 50 minutes quicker than the current journey time.
None of that has come to pass, with critics saying the whole plan was too ambitious. Critics have frequently accused the plans of excessive gold plating, with the project aiming to run the fastest trains in the world when they were, of course, first conceived in the early 2010s. With a reduced top speed of 199 miles per hour now announced, we're looking at train speeds other countries have been hitting broadly since the 1970s. Japan's Shinkansen trains, also known as bullet trains, were reaching nearly 200 miles per hour in the late 70s. That's where we are now, with a project that won't arrive till I'm about 60 years old. This is not cutting-edge technology, with some now topping 310 miles per hour. Meanwhile, in France, with the TGV, this huge, vast network that runs across the country, those speeds have been exceeded since 2007. And this is not cutting-edge technology. And of course, there's China, Michael's favorite place, which now has over 31,000 miles of high-speed rail, many of the trains on it reaching speeds of over 200 miles per hour since 2005. And this is a middle-income country, certainly back then. There's another element to that impressive transformation in China as well. Just 40 years ago, the average speeds reached on China's commercial lines was just 40 miles per hour. Isn't that crazy? 40 miles per hour. I was alive. Michael, how the tables have turned.
I know, absolutely. I mean, it's very depressing. So before 2008, China had no high-speed rail. They've now got 40,000 kilometers. So it's more than double the high-speed rail network everywhere else in the world, right? So China is exceptional. You can say, why are we comparing ourselves to literally the best country in the world at building high-speed rail? But we have built zero in that time. We announced this project in 2009, right? They didn't start building either until 2008. They've built 40,000 kilometers. They've connected every city in China with more than 500,000 residents in that time. It's brilliant. It's relatively cheap. It works really, really well. Why? Now, I mean, this sort of goes back to your interview with Dan Wang. Excellent. Sort of says China is a country of engineers. The politicians there usually studied engineering, very well qualified in engineering. All of our politicians did law. I mean, he was talking about the United States, but we pretty much have the same political
Best case
system
law, right? I mean, it's often journalism, right? Best case.
I mean, even more now, journalism. So that makes a big difference. Obviously, you don't have to go all the way to the Chinese system. I mean, because that's very different to our own. The French, the Spanish, the Italians, also much better at building high-speed rail than we are. I do think this has a lot to do with, I suppose, there is an argument that it's about sort of common law, where we have a very rights-based system, constant consultations. Everyone can complain about it going through their land or getting in the way of a bat colony that they care about. There are so many veto points when it comes to building anything. The other issue, I think, is that there is no sort of inbuilt institutional memory and state capacity when it comes to this. So what you ideally want is you want a state department full of engineers who understand how to build high-speed rail, who get it, who are experts in this, and they can sort of decide. I don't think there are any states that sort of actually build the track themselves. I don't think it's normally public employees building the tracks. But what you want is someone who is signing these contracts with the people to build it, who understand what they're talking about. So then if you're trying to highball, you can say, no, I think it should actually cost this much. I'm not actually sure we need that particular feature that obviously you want to sell to me because you want to sell me the highest feature. So we need less veto points and more inbuilt expertise in the government. I think the Americans and us have a similar problem there, which the French have been quite good at doing. They have it as sort of part of their political national identity that you have to be able to build state projects. That's part of the legitimacy of the state. And it's very much, a prestigious thing to do, to go and work for the French planning department. And we need to bring that back. That's why I feel like, one response obviously to the HS2 going over budget is to say, let's cancel it. Let's not bother with any of this. I think do it and make sure the next leg is much cheaper than the last one. I mean, obviously the most embarrassing thing about this is not the price. It's the price combined with it only going from London to Manchester and it taking 20 years. Like that is 30 years actually. Not to Manchester, to Birmingham. It's not even going to Manchester. It's not going to Manchester. It's not going to Leeds. London to Birmingham. It's taking 40 years and it's costing £100 billion. That is an outrage.
£1 billion a mile is kind of crazy. I'm exactly the same as you. Build the thing, learn the lessons. Next time you might save a bit more, and then hopefully we have, lots of high-speed rail, HS2, 3, 4, 5. And by the time you get to 5, you have a very cost-effective, efficient, publicly administered system, right? Very effective procurement. I think that's where we should go. But £1 billion per mile. And I think the strange thing with all this, Michael, I agree with what you just said, right? But it's really easy to say the leadership was poor. We don't have a culture of engineering. It was politically mismanaged. All these things that have come out of this report today, which Heidi Alexander has responded to. The crazy thing for me is we did a similar project, HS1, which connects, London to the Eurotunnel. It's half the length. That's not a small bit of land. It's about half the length of the Birmingham-London line. I think it's about 65, 66 miles. About half the length of the bit we're now doing. They did that in around 9 or 10 years. It worked out about £50 million per mile, right? Which is a lot less than £1 billion a mile. So it was a lot quicker, had far fewer problems, had some problems, of course. It was a lot quicker, far fewer problems, and a lot cheaper. And you would think, okay, that sets you up so nicely. Okay, well, we did that. Let's do a similar project, twice as big, be a bit more ambitious, take those lessons we've learned forward. But actually, we were terrible. It's like you build a house the first time. You do an okay job, but it's pretty crap. The plastering isn't great, and the electrics aren't good, and the plumbing's not great. But it's you can live in it, and then you try and build something else, and it's terrible, and it collapses the minute you finished. What explains that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because obviously there are all these sort of political economy, sort of structural reasons why you can say sort of our legal system, the fact that sort of
we had that legal system for HS1.
That's what I mean.
Right?
That's why this is confusing. Why could we do it then? I mean, I have read people say one thing we haven't done is just learn from doing it before. So obviously the reason it's very cheap in China and France is because they do it over and over again. You learn from your mistakes from the first one. You do what worked. You can then also sort of, you don't have to get something bespoke built every time because you're using the same track, you're using the same rolling stock. You get economies of scale. I don't know why we didn't do that. Potentially, again, for each of these projects, we create a new publicly owned corporation, which is separate from the civil service. And one reason is because that's supposed to give it sort of a more long-term framing because it's not changing government to government. It's also so that you can hire people from it without looking at the pay structure of the civil service. So if this was a government department, you wouldn't be able to pay people enough that sort of the top engineers want to come and work for it. So there is potentially sort of a stupid kind of system we have where everything is too formal, what you're paying people in the civil service. So if you want to actually do something that's competitive on the global market, you have to make a separate public corporation. But that means you don't have any of the institutional memory which you would get if you brought it in-house.
But also you don't get the value for money, right? You're saying, this is the thing. We have to pay the top wages to get the best people, and the best paid civil servant in the UK over the last 15 years has always been the person that's basically leading HS2. Now, I'm not going to blame these faults on the present person at the top of HS2 because they weren't caused by them, but their predecessors were paid huge amounts of money, and frankly, they delivered shit outcomes. I don't like to use that word, but it's true. £1 billion. So they said that you have to pay money to get the best. We should be like Singapore, pay our politicians £250,000 a year. I mean, you can make that argument, and it might be a good argument. I don't agree with it personally. But if you look at HS2 and its history over the last 13 years, it doesn't really stand up.
Ideally, you want the best people to work in the civil service and work there forever. So I think the problem here is
you want the best people are mission-oriented to get the best value for money, right? That's the thing. You don't want the best people just because, well, actually the best people will have the stupidest plan and they won't be worried about costs.
But you need, I suppose the issue is, if you want like amazing engineers and scientists, you are competing with some people who can pay them pretty well, right? Especially engineers, right? So I suppose an issue is the civil service is just full of like humanities and law graduates.
This is Michael's bugbear.
You need way more people in there who have done hard sciences. And probably that does make it, people who do hard sciences probably should get paid a bit more than people who waffle on about politics.
No, we don't want no Novara Media presenters working on building HS3. Thank you very much.
Absolutely not.
Thank you very much. Although, again, it's another strange part of this whole story. I think there were 5 or 6 comms firms strategic communications, public affairs, doing the whole comms messaging for HS2, most people have no idea why we're even building this thing. Why would you have 4 or 5 comms agencies? You'd have one because you want one message, right? It really was a gravy train. And we shouldn't be concerned about admitting as much, even if we think the state should be building high-speed rail. Michael, I'm a bit sad tonight. Do you want to know why?
Go on.
We've not argued.
I know. We're too agreeable at the moment. We're on tomorrow, aren't we?
We are.
We're on tomorrow. We'll find something to row about. I just want to do a little shout out for United Dreamer. I worked on HS1. We have an engineer in the audience. They dropped the HS1 partners for HS2, so it was completely different partners. I would like to know why they did that, but that'll be for another day.
Well, what's their name, this person?
They are called United Dreamer.
United Dreamer, Aaron at novaramedia.com, Michael at novaramedia.com. A classic example of this is HS1 had 199 mile per hour, I think, basically where we're ending up now with top speeds. Who made the decision that actually we needed something quicker for HS2? And maybe we do. We've talked about that. But who made that decision? What was the decision-making process like? I'd love to know. This is a case study in political dysfunction.
One more engineer.
Go on.
B. Watton says, I'm a software engineer and have wanted to work for the government for a very long time, but I can't justify the massive pay cut.
Don't worry. It's a matter of time before PM Michael Walker walks through the doors of 10 Downing Street and he'll bring a pro-STEM agenda. He'll alienate all the humanities leftists.
I'll be the only humanities graduate in the civil service. Everyone else can go.
Yeah.
Just me and a bunch of engineers.
Yeah. We'll lose all our supporters. But before we do, of course, lose all of you, become a supporter first. To leave, to get upset with Michael Walker and cancel your subscription, you have to start one first, right? So go to novaramedia.com/support. Help us build a new media for different politics to build consent for things like high-speed rail. I want to do that. Ideally at £50 million per mile, not a billion. That would be good. But it's the kind of thing that really matters to me, matters to lots of people out there. You might not support HS1 or 2, but I think most people think we should be having fewer journeys in cars, more by rail and public transport generally.